Hi, I'm Rune. Welcome to Kirt THOMSEN. We're designing the energy transition.
Enlit on the roads come to Copenhagen, where we're in conversation with Rune Kirt, the CEO of the award-winning design agency Kirt & Thompson. Rune, thanks for having us. Well, let's talk a little bit about the work that the company does. How do you see the visual design side of things contributing positively to the messaging of energy companies, be they startups or established companies? What's the role of that, particularly in the STEM sector?
I like that you mentioned STEM because it's especially, you could say, what we bring into this is a A to the STEM. So it becomes STEAM to bring the arts into STEM, to the mathematics and technology and engineering and science. So a little bit like the softer skills, you could say. You can almost look at like two sides of the brain, right? Where you maybe tend to think more in one side of the brain and the hard skills, where we sort of bring the other mindset in, where we both think a little bit more holistic and think also in more like why questions. And that's what we then materialize in the visualizations and why they then become impactful and also powerful in some of these processes, because they allow the more hard competences, if we just take the engineers as one, to think a little bit different about what they have going on, and also being able to communicate to C-level or to other people that are maybe not directly related to the technology in itself, and therefore enable better collaboration and in the end accelerating in making a successful implementation of a product or new technology.
And do you think that this enables these companies to communicate more effectively with their end customers, because we need to ensure that the customers are brought on board with the energy transition? Is that an important part of your messaging?
It's also an important part, but I would maybe see it like, you could say, for many years, and as I come from like the design field and architectural field. I'm trained as an industrial designer and architect, and there was a tendency that you thought of very user-centric design, as actually thinking of the end customer. But I would say right now we're shifting into like a stakeholder-centric design. So we need to think of much more stakeholders, not only the end customer. So I would say that the end customer is important, but you need to address all the other ones. Otherwise you will not succeed in the end.
I mean, how would you characterize the Danish innovation scene as compared perhaps with the rest of Europe?
Yeah, I would think the Danish innovation scene is maybe, you could say, visionary and of course innovative, but maybe tending to push the limits more than others. We're also we're in a flat country without any resources, any raw materials, so we need to think out of the box.
And from what you're seeing, particularly in the green energy space, of course, which is what Enlit's interested in, are there any things that you're seeing at the moment that particularly excite you, that you can see a great progress in?
Maybe what you would just see some years ago was maybe more like technology focus on wind turbines or so, more like hardware stuff. And now it's mixing into multiple technologies, and especially like those connecting technologies. So I think energy storage is very much, there's different concepts for that, but also what is connected to that, like for the green fuels, the power-to-X systems, and what else comes out with the fuels. So thinking much more on those connected energy systems, as well as there's some initiatives around the carbon capture as well, maybe more from a research perspective. And then the digital layer is also something that have an impact.
Well, let's talk about the aspect of collaboration, because since you brought it up. I mean, how important do you see industries collaborating more and creating clusters in order to further the energy transition?
Yeah, I think that's very important, and also something that actually characterizes the Danish innovation system within the energy sector. is the need for collaborating. We see, for instance, one having that we have a more national cluster for the energy sector, and where like different roadmaps for innovation focuses is formed. For instance, the green fuels and the carbon capture, the agriculture, also the circularity and so on. And I think it's a simple need both to collaborate across, you could say, silos and across sectors, but also across the value chain within each of these, simply to accelerate implementation to market. And I think also in that there's a big need for thinking more innovative in the process in itself and the methods that you use to actually collaborate, because we've not been used to collaborate across many different sectors and companies and value chain and so on.
What changes have you perceived in the way startup businesses and scale-up businesses are being absorbed into the mainstream? Have there been any changes in recent years?
I think what I see is both from, if you take it from the perspective of the big companies, the utilities and so on, where we see startups and the more radical innovation and so on, that maybe was sort of a department in these big companies, maybe even a bit isolated, or it was maybe even happening outside the company. Now it's because the transition is happening so fast and need to happen so fast, those more radical innovations seem to be integrated in the company, in the processes, and not even in only one department, but trying to think across departments, and also thinking more holistically, not thinking of the individual technology, but thinking across in systems and energy systems.
Because Rune THOMSEN works with both established big energy companies and the startups, so you see it from both perspectives.
The startups also have maybe come closer to the big corporates, or maybe being more mature in the way of communicating, because it's maybe been a little bit looked down at, you could say, from the startup, that you need to communicate your concepts very clearly. And I think the startups are being much better at communicating, and therefore also engaging with collaboration.
Just lastly, on a personal note, I mean, what is it that kind of drives you day after day to come in and help advance the energy transition?
It's to make a difference, essentially, and of course that seems very that everybody can say. But I think making a difference from actually bringing that new perspective into the energy sector, and almost being sort of a frontier within the energy sector in itself, is what motivating me to go to work and keep on going in this energy sector with very complex technologies.
Rune Kirt, thanks for talking to Enlit on the road today.
Thanks for being here.